Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. This podcast is brought to you by GrownBy. Join farmers from across the U.S. who are selling direct on the first cooperatively owned sales app, GrownBy. You can easily manage CSAs of any scale, organize your spring plant sales, move that freezer meat, or even sell wholesale on GrownBy. Farm shops are free to build with lots of inventory options. You can accept credit cards and offline payments, and their pick lists and pack sheets do the job. Customers will get automated notifications on orders, refunds, and pickups. There is no startup fees, no monthly or yearly subscriptions, no additional charge for tech support. The only cost is a small co-op service charge for online processing. However, as a listener of the Thriving Farmer podcast, you get 50% off your first 3 months of co-op service charges on GrownBy. Email their very friendly farmer support team at grow@farmgenerations.coop to get this offer. Check it out at grownby.com or download the app on the Google Play or Apple App Stores. GrownBy, the farmer-owned marketplace. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today, my guest is Lindsey Lusher Shute, who is the co-founder of the Farm Generations Cooperative, the makers of GrownBy. GrownBy is the first cooperatively owned sales app for farms. Before co-founding Farm Generations Cooperative, Lindsey co-founded the National Young Farmers Coalition and led the organization as the executive director for a decade. Under her leadership, young farmers influenced 2 farm bills and 1 change for farmers on the state and federal levels. Lindsey and her husband, Ben, are the owners of Hearty Roots Community Farm, an organic vegetable farm in CSA in the Hudson Valley of New York. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
Yes. So give us a little bit start, like how did you get involved in farming?
That is a great question. A good place to start. Well, actually, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and I have farming in my family. My great-grandfather was a full-time farmer. My grandfather had sort of a hobby farm where I spent a ton of time as a kid, but I never really thought about farming as a career growing up at all. And actually, I moved to New York City where I met my husband, Ben, and the 2 of us separately got really excited about community gardening. And we actually met at a community garden rally of all things in New York City at City Hall. And Ben had just he grew up in the city, and he had just during college been working on a number of farms in the Pioneer Valley in Massachusetts, and just was like so inspired. And he really sort of opened my eyes to the local food movement and CSA and all of the ways that local food from the entire region was getting into the city. I joined my first CSA, and he eventually went up to the Hudson Valley to start what is now Hearty Roots with a friend. And that is really how I got involved, by seeing, his journey into farming and being part of that. And then for a while, I had a small flower farm that sort of worked alongside our vegetable CSA operation. But yeah, it was, through just being really, I think in my heart, I've always had a love for agriculture and farms, because that, just is my family and my dad's family, and, memories of those experiences. But the notion of farming as the future, I think that didn't really come to me until I saw it for myself in the amazing, vibrant food system in New York City, and how it interplays with many of the farms that surround it.
So the Columbus, Ohio, being in Columbus, so the farm that you grew up on or around, was that more of a conventional corn and bean farm?
So no, it was not. Although there are, and I mean, that really characterizes all around Columbus, right? If you've been there, the markets that you see now were really not there. They didn't have that quite such a presence.
And
when
even
I was
to this
growing up. Yeah.
even to this day, the CSA scene, the local food scene, is not as vibrant in some as it could be as in some other cities.
There's a lot of opportunity there for sure. There has been a lot of growth, which is exciting.
Absolutely.
And encouraging to see. My grandfather's farm was in Appalachia, so right near the West Virginia border, so really hilly country, and so they had goats and and a couple acre like market garden kind of a thing, but his full-time job was a preacher, so it was mainly he was growing for his community and leaving tomatoes on people's doorsteps and things like that. So, really like a passion of his.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So then let's talk a little bit about, because I think the first time I heard Ben was we were both at a young farmers conference at Stone Barns, and Ben got up and spoke. It was a question and answer period for, I think, one of the USDA folks, one of the big USDA guys that came down, and he just very passionately laid out the plea for helping young farmers get land. Because, not, and a lot of starting a business is hard, but when you have to start a business and you have to buy land, which is tens of thousands of dollars, it's such a barrier to entry.
It is biggest. Yep.
Yeah. So I can't remember I think you guys had started the coalition at that point, or it was pretty new.
Right. That was likely the early days of the coalition. And in fact, it was at a Stone Barns conference that the idea of starting the National Young Farmers Coalition was put out there, and there was a really great response from members, young farmers who were attending the conference, and then it sort of took off from there. But the issue of land access was really, I think, what drove both Ben and me and Severin, our co-founder, to start the Young Farmers Coalition, because all of us in our own ways were struggling with land access and renting land, and just being in a very vulnerable position in terms of having, we were not able to apply for USDA programs because we didn't have long enough leases. Like, we knew farmers in our circle that had been kicked off of their land. I mean, it's just like, what on earth are we going to do in the future? How are we going to feed ourselves as a nation if we are treating young farmers like this? And there was really an opportunity there for us to galvanize the young farmer community around this central issue of land access. So that, yes, absolutely, that is one of the biggest issues that young farmers today still face. And I'm proud to say there are ways that groups are coming together to try to solve that issue. But it is complex for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about starting that. I mean, was it started on the back of a napkin that you just said, we need to do this? Or
well, basically, I mean, we were sitting around a table at Severin's farm, and which, was located here in the Hudson Valley at that point, and really just talking about these issues and thinking about, like, what could a bigger vision be? And it really came down around, like, three things that we all sort of wanted to do. One was change policy, influence the next farm bill, to organize farmers, to give them a platform to come together in chapters and as a national organization to sort of speak their mind, like Ben did in that moment with USDA, but also just have their issues at the forefront and to be the top priority. And the last thing is technical support, giving farmers the resources that they needed to do well. I mean, and some of that is things that at that time were sort of taken for granted in some circles, just with, how do you apply for a USDA loan? What is the USDA? What does that even stand for? And how does it work? Like, just sort of helping to, unlock the resources that are available to farmers for the next generation who maybe didn't even grow up in a farm family, so don't have those relationships to sort of lean on when they're trying to get a foothold.
Yeah. Because there's also the education side of this. There's land access, there's education. There is, I think too, another huge problem of this is just how broken the U.S. food system is. And we've had so many guests on to talk about that. I mean, you've got the food deserts neighborhoods. You've got, the lack of training in schools on how to actually use a raw carrot or tomato. So, I mean, there's just so many challenges. And then you add on to the top of that, basically huge barriers of entry to farmers getting on farms. It makes it really challenging. So then just talk us through, like, kind of, how long were you with the coalition for? How many years did you run that?
So I was there for 10 years. I led the organization as executive director from, I guess, 2009 to 2019 is when I stepped away to start the Farm Generations Cooperative, which was incubated by the National Young Farmers Coalition. So that got started really around 2017, but then was fully independent after, I guess, a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, and over those years, I think you went through how many different farm bill cycles, a couple different farm bill cycles. Okay. Yeah. And that actually is happening right now as well.
That's right. Yep. Ramping up for it. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's something that I really wish there was a better way to get feedback to them, because in previous cycles, they've actually had like public listening sessions, but I'm not familiar with that right now.
I don't know what the plans are, to be totally honest, but usually USDA will have farm bill listening sessions in advance of the farm bill, but no one should wait on USDA to make any plans. What you need to do is go and speak to your member of Congress and tell them your story and what you need. There's, anyone, whether you're affiliated with an official organization or not, your story can make a difference. And there are ways that members of Congress, just by hearing your story, they will have opportunities put in front of them to support small farmers, to support, land access, to support getting more capital into the hands of small operators, which is, continually a big issue. So there are ways to get involved. And the thing that every single farmer has is a great story, and the ability to have a personal connection with a member of Congress that, cares about their district. So there's ways to get involved with Young Farmers Coalition and many other great organizations around the country. And it's also really important for farmers to just take the initiative to get to know the people that represent them.
Yeah. Yeah. We just had a flip here in Ohio with our representative. So he's from the city, so he's a lot more, I'll be, I think, trying next time. I'm going to reach out to his office. I know that they literally just got underway and all of that, but I will reach out to his office and see if there's a chance to try to get him out to our farm.
To
show him kind of what we're doing, kind of what the difference is. I'm hoping, seeing with, again, the changes, and that this is a tight district, so that he'll be hopefully more open to listening, but we'll see.
Right.
So cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so you ran the coalition. I want to have Ben on the chat about the farm, but share a little bit about the farm, maybe like a couple minutes about like the size of the farm, kind of where your market is, just so I can get people and get that idea.
Absolutely. So this is our 19th year at Hearty Roots, which I can hardly believe, but is the truth. And we started off on a half acre of rented land, an old dairy farmer, Pete Bulkley, like a just wonderful guy, gave Ben and Brianna, his farm partner, to start out that's initial little piece of land to get going. And they started with a 30 member and the member CSA, just serving the local community here, of course. And then they just continued to double that year after year after year. And now Hearty Roots, that Ben is operating, last year we had, we sell about 1,000 shares in a given season. So, and they go to New York City, they stay here in the Hudson Valley to our regional community. We do some wholesale. So it's mainly organic vegetables. We also have, 1,000 to 2,000 layers that we run on pasture here. We have some sheep and some pigs, but those are, they're more like we love them, but they're a little more like a hobby operation. The real driver of the farm is our organic vegetables. And overall, this season we'll be managing about 160 acres in total.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with that 160 acres, now most of that goes to the city. And talk through kind of like, obviously to start Farm Generations Co-op, you had to probably have a need for it. So along the way,
That's right.
was there like hey, the current software that we're using now just isn't quite working?
Yes, many times over. So I think the Farm Generations Cooperative, our mission is to build the tools that farmers need in the future farm economy, right? To be able to sell online and to be able to do that well, and to continue to build this movement and to build their farms and build their own farm viability. And so when I was at the Young Farmers Coalition, as you would expect, like, we're looking at the entire, farming across the US broadly, like what are the risks that young and beginning farmers are facing? We've already talked about land access. Are there programs that are appropriately skilled, at the government level? What health insurance is a big, like all these things that were sort of threats to their futures as successful farmers. And one of the things that crept up in my time there was the presence of new tech companies seeing opportunity in this local food space. Like, this is the place where we can build an app and we can do pretty well. Like there's opportunity there for us, to make a lot of money essentially. And so there were some pretty slick apps that were put out there that, we used a couple of them. And ultimately, we just didn't feel like, as a farm, and we saw this and we continue to see this again and again in the farm community, that those companies, sort of broadly speaking, were not really acting as good partners with the farm community. Like their interest was paying back their investors and, having whatever X return on their software. They weren't really thinking like, okay, well, what is the return for the farmer, right? How is the farmer doing in all of this? And that the prioritization not of like the well-being of the farmer, but the well-being of their own company leads to some conflicts, right? And we saw companies shift sort of their focus, like not focusing on CSA or direct sales, but focusing on like aggregation or increasing prices, or just going out of business, right? And that's a big deal when you're a farmer and you've spent all that time putting your products online and getting your customers to purchase, from this certain website. Switching gears is really hard. And so we identified technology as like a future risk and a present risk for farmers. And this is pre-COVID, right? When not all of us were like, oh my gosh, I got to sell online. Like, but the farms that were starting to do this just didn't really have a firm foundation, a platform that they could trust for those sales. So the coalition applied for some, support from USDA, and we were able to get like this initial software product out there and get the cooperative form. So it's a farmer-owned, farmer-driven company providing software for farm sales. And yes, like CSA, of course, because I was so involved in it, is like a central portion of that. Like, when you're a farmer and you're bringing, we go to 7 sites in New York City, we go to 4 sites up here. There's a lot of complexity in managing all those customer relationships and taking payments and installment payments. I mean, blah, 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 blah. Like there's so much. And so that's like a perfect place for technology to really ease the operational friction for farmers. And that's sort of, yes, like where GrownBy, I think, started from. It's like, how can we have a company that we can trust? How can we have a software platform that's truly innovative that can make this way of doing business, direct sales, a lot easier and simpler and just more manageable for a farm that has, not a ton of administrative capacity. And then the last part for me was, okay, so we have the nuts and bolts, but like, how do we push into the future? How do we not just feel satisfied with where we are as a community now, but how do we grow this, right? It's not like I want to see individual farms succeed, and I want to see all of us succeed, right? And the way that we've positioned the software is to really build the farm community as a whole, build local food as a portion of the American diet as a whole, because we have a shared platform where consumers can find any farm and purchase from those farms. So that's the other part of it, is just like, how do we provide innovation? How do we push this space further than it's gone before to help, the local food movement thrive and grow?
Yeah. And I think the first up there, the first thing you mentioned was cost. And, there are products out there. So like we deal with a local food marketplace called a Market Wagon. And again, they've got a great idea. I love what they're doing for some of their stuff. We'd have some bumps in working with them. I feel like now they've grown as a company that most of those bumps have been worked out, but they want us to give, like, if we list our CSA on their platform, they want 25%. And that's a lot. I mean, and there's other programs out there that want less than that. I mean, some up to 10%, and they have a business model, which I guess is working for them. And then obviously there's other ones which are monthly, but the way you have come about it is, community funded, going after some, I think USD, well, I don't know what kind of grants you've gone after. I know you've gone after some different grants.
Yep.
And then your co-op fees are just very small, and there's no monthly fee. So a farmer can get on, list their farm, and then there's only a very small fee. And only if they are, taking payments is where that fee is. So they can literally use the platform for free. And you've got two aspects. Is they can just list products on there. It's more like a marketplace, but then also they can obviously do the whole CSA management, which I think it needs to be distinctly noticed that that's separate than the whole marketplace aspect, right? Because there's advantages for every farm to be on, but then if you want to do CSA, you can very easily also sell those shares on there as well.
That's right. And they will be available to anyone, any consumer who is, on the App Store looking for local food. They can find your CSA distribution sites and easily sign up, which we at our farm for the first time had some of our New York City members find our farm through GrownBy, which was just like the most amazing moment, because I'm like, it's working.
Yes.
This is what we're here for, is to bring consumers to farms. Those fees add up. Like, they're offensive in some cases. Like, you want how much money to put my farm on your website? I mean, that it's just like, it's unaffordable, right? It's pushing up the prices for consumers and pushing, down what farmers are bringing home at the end of the day. And it's just not right. So we have a 2% co-op fee that we charge, but we actually just introduced a feature. We released our 3.0 in December, and there's a new feature where consumers can actually elect to cover those fees, both the credit card fee and the co-op fee for farmers. And like I don't know, 80% or so. This is only with a month of this new feature in place, but 80% of consumers are doing that for farmers. So you're right. Like, you can almost use it for free right now, which is amazing. Like, that's what we want. We want farmers to take home as much money as they possibly can at the end of the day for their hard work. So yes, it is, I would say, probably the most affordable option out there. Farmers can get started on their own. There's no, we don't have to start your account for you. You just go on, sign up, connect with Stripe, and build your farm store. Hey, Thriving Farmers listeners. Did you know that customers buy nearly 30% more when shopping on an app? I mean, it makes sense. An app keeps your products top of mind and easy for your customers to order again and again. That's why my farm and hundreds of farmers across the country are selling on GrownBy, the farmer-owned marketplace. I'm Lindsey Lusher Shute, co-founder and farmer. With GrownBy, your CSA or market customers are always connected to your farm because your store is on the app. They can favorite your farm, leave you a review, and get order notifications. It's basically a farmer's market in their pocket. This year, we used GrownBy on my farm to sell hundreds of CSA shares, seasonal pies, whole lambs, quarter pigs, and Thanksgiving turkeys. Our customers love it because it is just easy. They don't have to remember our website or anything like that. We're just there on their phones, on the app. GrownBy is the only farmer-owned sales platform, and we'd love to help you sell more next season. Setting up shop takes less than an hour. We charge a 2% co-op fee per transaction, but customers can cover it for you. So the cost turns out to be pretty minimal and well worth the investment because you have saved time and sold more. Listeners to the Thriving Farmers podcast get 50% off their first 3 months on GrownBy. Just email us at GROW, at farmgenerations.coop to get this offer, and Michael will link to us in today's show notes. You can find GrownBy at grownby.com, GROWNBY.com, or on the Google Play or Apple App Stores under GrownBy. I look forward to seeing your farm on GrownBy this season.
So talk us through, like, I've never created a software product. I'm sure it's a learning curve as well.
Yeah. Going from farming to software development has actually, well, I love technology, so it has been a very fun process for me.
But you got clean fingernails.
Cleaner, that's for sure. For the moment. So yes, it has been a learning curve, and I have really been blessed. Farm Generations has been blessed with some just phenomenal developers that are so aligned with the purpose and mission of the cooperative and providing an alternative kind of company just in Silicon Valley generally, like to have a user-owned and operated and designed software platform is, that doesn't happen every day. So our development team, I think they recognize that they're part of something really special, and they have just put so much into it. So it's just really been an honor to work with them. So we started out with our alpha version of GrownBy, and we learned a lot. I mean, the thing about software, and I hope the thing about farming too, is, you learn something in one season, then you change it, right? Yeah. And you fix it and you do it again. And you're constantly iterating on what you're learning. And sometimes that is like pretty painful. We built our alpha version of GrownBy that we built, like we had a Ravi Kumar Ramanathan, our chief technology officer, he joined us after we built that actually. And he's like, no, that is not going to work. And so we scrapped the entire thing and rebuilt it. I mean, and that kind of like change is on some level painful, but it's also refreshing because you can just like recognize this system is not working, and it's time to learn. Like, let's learn as much as we can and keep learning and changing along the way. So anyways, yes, it's been an interesting process. It is fascinating to really have a front row seat and just be so embedded in all of these farm operations around the country as well, to see the myriad ways that farms distribute their products and the kinds of products that they're selling, the different types of shares. I mean, it's so creative, so complex sometimes. So that's been eye-opening as well, to just sort of, have an inside view as to just like, how farms are positioning themselves and marketing to their local communities.
Yeah. One quick question about GrownBy, because I thought I swear I had our team set this up, but now I'm having a hard time finding us on here. So I'm glad I'm having this podcast, because now I can actually be like, team, come on, let's get on here. One of the things is, do you allow CSV uploads of like products and stuff? So let's talk to some features, because obviously there's some features that farmers are always interested in talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now you can get all of your data out of GrownBy. We do not have an immediate way to add products into the system. And part of that is that the GrownBy offers many sort of highly sort of tailored scheduling features for farms. So yes, like the CSA model has that we have built, like allows for weekly and bi-weekly shares and monthly shares, and daily, if you have a farm store and you're open every day, a daily daily schedule. So part of the challenge with having that sort of upload capability, and we will do it eventually, but so far we haven't done it because each of the products we have to know what schedule you're going to put it on and so on, which is like unique to GrownBy. So we haven't gone there quite yet, but I hear you. And I think like one of the things that we are focusing on now is just like, how do we just make it easy for people to
Yeah.
transition? Because it's hard, right? You've invested so much time in the platform you're on. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm back on GrownBy because
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
and my farm's there, but I need to invite it to GrownBy. So is that something where you guys have identified farms, or is it a feature that just automatically pulls farms in?
Yeah, so we've about 30,000 farms that are on our map across the country. And that data is just pulled into GrownBy. And to start the process of setting up a shop on GrownBy, you just claim your farm. And there's a little bit of a verification process. And then you go ahead and add photos and create a farm profile. And then the next step is if you want to add products and set up a schedule, you can do that as well.
All right. So I have to verify my phone number, put my information in. Yeah, it's super simple. And the other thing, again, I'm a little obsessive compulsive about the aesthetic.
I appreciate that.
And the beautiful thing about GrownBy is it's beautiful. So that's not something I can say for some of the other platforms we've used in the past. But yeah, that is definitely something that but
we've worked really hard, and we will continue to, improve what you see. It's like the basic thing we need to do is make your products look awesome on our site, right? If you're setting up a farm shop, I want you to be really proud of how that looks, because that's a representation of your brand and who you are and your farm. So thank you for saying that. And yes, like that is really critical. Consumers need an experience with GrownBy that's just as good as they might have, at Amazon or Fresh Direct or something like that. Like that's the world we are in, and we have to, give an experience that's really top notch. And yes, thank you for realizing that.
All right. So farms can just easily get themselves on GrownBy, get their products listed, because that's the cool thing. If they go there, they can see the products that are available in their area, which is really nice. Right. It's another way to drive traffic back to your farm. And then, all right, let's talk through CSA, because CSA's changed. And I think with GrownBy 3.0, talk a little bit about some of the feature updates that ended up in that update.
Gosh, there are a lot. So right now, I'll just tell you about how CSA works on GrownBy. GrownBy was developed by a bunch of CSA farmers, so you can be sure that CSA is well serviced in the platform. And the sort of basic model that people use, I think, would be a traditional kind of CSA model. Yeah. So you put your shares up there. You can, do shares at different frequencies to as many locations as you want. You set up schedules, and then you set a, price per week, price per box. And then you can, if you want to offer installment payments, we can take care of all of that. If you want to do proration, you can do all of that. And then you just, and you can have a deposit, of course, which is important, as well. And then you start selling. And then your customers each week will get a text notification. If they have downloaded the app, they can see all of their future pickups, all of their orders, all of their future invoices. If they have invoices due into the future, for their farm share, and they get an email and they get a notification to say that their share is ready to pick up, and the location and all of that good stuff. Customers can also claim vacation weeks. So there's this thing called farm credit on GrownBy. So on our farm, we give all of our customers 2 weeks of vacation each season, which is just the nicest feature. And we've had some farms that have joined the platform that have been I don't know about this vacation week thing, and giving them the farm credit is specific to your farm. It's not platform. Yeah. It's for your farm. But we have really found it to be a very useful tool and a very powerful way to get people to sign up season after season, because at the end of the share, they oftentimes have $20 credit to your farm. And so then they can use that for the next season's share. So it's it's a good incentive to get people to come back again and again to purchase CSA shares. We also have location switching. So our customers in the city can switch around locations. If they can't get to one place, they can get to another on a certain day. And then so we at Hearty Roots, we have a pretty traditional, like primary, vegetable share, and then you can add on fruit and eggs, and we did cheese this winter actually, and then we'll sell like ad hoc items, like you can order your Thanksgiving turkey or a pie or whatever it might be. And so we do that kind of more like we do that with add-on shares, and then occasional one-off things that you can buy on the platform just for, a single date. We have other farms that have sort of a little bit more of a customizable experience. So Footprint Farm is an awesome example of that. In Vermont, they have a basic share that they offer, and then they have each week a ton of additional products that they offer on their CSA page, whether it's milk or gelato or cheese or bread. I mean, there's a lot of customization they do. The customer goes on each week and selects the products that they want to add to their share for that week. So we don't do, at this point, we don't sort of like have an algorithm where we're saying, tomatoes, not broccoli.
Yes.
But we have a lot of flexibility for farmers to add products that they can make available to their CSA members, and those CSA members can easily choose any of those for the next week's pickup, or any, future pickup that's available.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're getting to that model. Yeah. And again, I'm not sure if that's what GrownBy wants to be. I think it's a very specific model. So,
I think that'll be up to farmers, right? If farmers want that type of customization down the road, I think that's absolutely something that we could build into the model. Right now, we are kind of leaving it up to farmers to make those choices on behalf of consumers, as opposed to have it, relying on them to do individual packing each week of, each share. So, it's an ongoing discussion. We are here to build what farmers need. The other thing that I should just mention that we're really excited as an update that's coming. It's not here just yet. We're waiting on USDA actually, but GrownBy is going to be the first platform out there that will be accepting SNAP and EBT benefits online, which we are so proud of. And one thing that is unique about the way we have built GrownBy is that you can easily do a CSA share for an EBT customer. And that should be available this season, where you can they enter their PIN online and then pay by the week essentially. So that's kind of like, that's what we've been focused on heavily for this 3.0 release is incorporating that payment method into GrownBy.
Very cool. So talk to me about like the different farmers around I'm assuming you have farmers all across the US using this, and this is only US at the moment, correct?
It is, yes, but we've been getting a lot of requests from Canadian farmers. So I think at some point we will definitely open it up a little bit, but right now it is just focused on, it is built for US agriculture. Right. So here in New York, where I am based, we have a Sleeping Lion Farm, which is the farm of my co-founder, Mike. Mike does grass-fed beef. And so he's selling, individual cuts and boxes of meat. He's actually shipping like meat boxes to cool. Customers all over the region. Rise and Root Farm is one of the farms that is on GrownBy. They used GrownBy for plants, their New York City plant sale last season. Yep. So they put up all of their seedlings. Actually, that's something that we're going to be working with them on, and a number of other farms next week, is thinking about that early plant sale, which is a great revenue maker. Footprint Farm, just like an awesome Vermont CSA farm that's super creative and really a model for a lot of other farms. Cully Neighborhood Farm is a farm Josh Volk runs outside of Portland. It's like a micro farm also doing CSA. I don't know. We have a couple of farms that are doing like neighborhood deliveries. Milky Fork Farm, Ben Goodman's farm, they are they've actually set up like a neighborhood delivery. This is just something, that I'm learning from, that I, not really was familiar with before, but they have CSA boxes and all, their entire catalog is open for their, their hyper local community to purchase. So that's another sort of model that we're seeing more of around the country.
Very cool. What are the next steps for GrownBy and, Farm Generations?
Yeah, well, the next immediate step is getting our farmers ready to go for 2023. We have a lot of farmers that are joining right now, which is really exciting to see, and many farmers that we anticipate will be joining to take advantage of this new EBT feature. So when they're at the farmers market, they can accept SNAP benefits directly. So that's good. That's sort of the thing that we're focused on. Through the beginning of the summer. That the next sort of thing that we're looking to work on as well is going to be incorporating wholesale more fully into GrownBy. There's huge opportunity there to support farmers, and for many operations where you're doing retail and you're doing wholesale together, we want you to be able to keep track of all of that inventory together on GrownBy. There are some farms that do use GrownBy for wholesale. There's nothing to say you can't do that now, but there's some specifics, some unique things about, selling to a restaurant or a grocery store or whatnot that we want to build on. So that's probably the next sort of chapter in our work, is to figure out how we can support farms in, more areas of their business.
Absolutely. What do you think that CSA is moving towards? I know that's always something that we keep seeing people talk about. So, you obviously do a very traditional model, but I know that a lot of people are moving away from that. Do you see that there will always be that core group that's going to stay traditional?
I think so. Until people stop signing up for this CSA. I think it's, with the right flexibility, it can and is a very successful model. I think, when you're giving small things like vacation weeks and, giving some, different frequencies and different sizes of shares, or even, different selections in particular shares, or, these, add-ons and 1 week things, there's enough flexibility. I feel like you can build into that to bring in a wider audience. But the core part of CSA is that efficiency, right? Of having funds up front, the beginning of the season, or at least part of the funds you need to get started, and to have the efficiency of not having to pack individual boxes, right, for every customer. And like during COVID, we did that, and it really increased our cost tremendously. Just the boxes alone.
Oh gosh, yes.
Right? So I think some consumers are just going to want customization, their custom shares, and we need to figure out the most efficient way to serve those members of our community. But more broadly speaking, there's so much to be said for CSA, both for the, it's that relationship between the farmer and the community member. Maybe they're not getting the exact thing that they want that week, but they're getting something that they didn't expect to receive, and it's this fresh and beautiful selection of produce. So like this, I think what we need to talk about more is just the really positive experience that CSA can be, where our customers are delighted by something new. We know everything that's so many things in our life there's without surprise, right?
Yes.
we know it's going to happen, but your CSA, it's an experience that you get to have each week, where you discover like, oh, I didn't even know you guys were growing that, or I didn't realize that was in season. Like that sort of experience is, I think, what brings our customers at least back year after year, is they like having that weekly trip to the farm, or to a community site where they see people. I think there's something really special about that. So I don't think those kind of CSAs are going away anytime soon. And And that's not to say that we shouldn't think about how we can continue to evolve that model to bring in more people, because that's what we need to grow the movement overall.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now it's interesting, like with our shares, we actually allow complete customization, but only about 60% customize. So you mean you've got that 40%, which they just are excited. They're going to see something new every single week. And our CSA is very unique in that we include everything from, like, this week they actually got a bundle of pussy willow stems from the farm.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And, you know, last week we brought in citrus from a farm in Georgia that we work with. So we're trying to just give them a full variety, even though I know some farms are just more focused on what's only coming from their farm, which is, again, I think both models work. Both models are just as viable. Our model is a little different, though. Yeah. So we, at our farm, we grow most of what we sell, but there's things that, like, we've decided we don't want to grow for whatever reason, right? Like potatoes is one thing that we don't always grow at the farm, but we're able to bring in from other farms. So I think there certainly, I hear you, like it is really important, I think, for the community and also for the farmer to be able to have those relationships so they can create they have a more holistic experience of a fuller basket for their customers. And I think customers react really well to having to make fewer stops on their way home from the CSA, because they already have a beautiful thing to have on their table, or citrus for their fridge. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lindsey, anything you'd like to leave with us before we go? Well, I am thrilled to have opportunity to talk about how GrownBy has evolved since the last time we talked, Michael. And I did just want to mention that we are putting together a special deal for listeners of your podcast to have a discount on co-op fees for their first months on the platform. So anyways, discount on the already very cheap fees. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. That's right. Lindsey's like, just sign up and try it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's my parting message. All right. Well, we appreciate check us out. We appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate, again, I'm not to discount a lot of other people that have been in this space doing software, but there's something very different about the way you guys your team has decided to work on this. And hey, I appreciate that, because farmers there's a lot of stresses and a lot of challenges they're facing. And so for someone to be willing to come up and work on this in a little bit of a different model says something about, just who you are. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Michael. Well, I appreciate your work as well. All right, folks. So the website is GrownBy. Yeah, remind folks where they need to go again. GrownBy.com, or you can go on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and just search for GrownBy, GrownBy, one word. Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right. Thanks so much for your time today, Lindsey. Thanks, Michael. We'll talk to you soon.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.